Hi, everyone. Welcome to All Things Aviation and Aerospace. I'm Vince Mickens with the Private Air Media Group. As many of you already know, my primary goal with All Things Aviation and Aerospace is to inspire the upcoming generation or up-and-coming generation of young aviation and aerospace professionals by exposing you to all aspects of the industry, including opportunities that you didn't even know existed, and to let you hear from experienced aviation and aerospace professionals like today's guest, who will help give you perspective as well as encouragement to persevere in achieving your dreams, whether it's to become a pilot, an airframe and power plant mechanic, an avionics technician, an air traffic controller, an engineer, an aviation attorney, or whatever your skill set is. That is one of the great things about our industry. Just about all skill sets are applicable. You know, the other great thing about the aviation and aerospace industry right about now is it's wide open with opportunities that are actually becoming more abundant by the day. Which brings me to an important part of our discussion today. We've been weathering the COVID-19 pandemic for over a year that required, like I like to refer to, a major reset in life. However, now that that's slowly but surely moving in the rearview mirror, the aviation industry, as an example, is ramping up faster than the speed of sound. What that translates to is the airlines are hiring again. First, the folks they furloughed, of course, but more importantly, they're looking for new pilots by the droves. As a side note, all branches of the military are aggressively trying to fill pilot training slots as well. So we're about to re-enter what was talked about as a pilot and mechanic shortage as recent as just before the pandemic. Well, it's coming back with a vengeance, and the good news about that is opportunities abound. Opening up a pathway for persons of color in particular to get a shot at their dream. So while major airlines such as United and Delta have recently implemented flight training programs with an emphasis on diversity, there's still the elephant of being a sensitive topic, sometimes controversial, that's still in the room. You know, just before this show today, during actually even before pre-show, I received a couple of messages in response to my email invite, a reminder invite that I sent out this morning. One I'll quote, and the quote was, the person said, "Is this another everyone gets a trophy conversation?" You know, initially that kind of really irked me, and I thought, well, it is what it is. But, you know, really what this is about is if you meet the criteria and the qualifications, et cetera, you simply should have a fair and equal shot at whatever opportunity exists there. In our case, it's about aviation and aerospace. So regardless of your race or your culture, your ethnicity, or your gender, you know, you just simply should have the same opportunity as everybody else. That's it, bottom line for me. Here's some facts, though, just to put an exclamation point on that. Of over 200,000 professional pilots currently flying or that are certified to fly, depending on the source that you look at, women represent under 10%. I've heard anywhere from 6% up to just under 10%. African Americans, about 2.5%, and that has not changed very much at all. Hispanic or Latinos, between 0.5% and as much as 6%. Again, there's some variations in there, but however you want to look at it, they're still small numbers. And then Asians between 0.7% and 0.23, just over 2%. And if the stats were broken down further, for example, for business aviation, then business aviation has its challenges too in trying to, you know, open the doors to more people. And then there's aerospace, and that's a whole nother conversation. So I won't even go down that road right now. So I hope to accomplish a couple of things in today's conversation. Let you, the aspiring young aviator, know about the opportunities and possibilities. Want to encourage those who have the resources to hire to think inclusively. And we're going to do a deep dive into organizations, for example, today, like Fly for the Culture, to talk about the opportunities and what this organization in particular is doing to reach out and let young people of color know about what's out there. So we'll dive into that in a little bit. But before I introduce my guests, I wanted to make a few honorable mentions. There were a couple of other associations I had hoped to have a representative on today, but they have been busy. United and Delta just recently announced expanding their programs and their training efforts and that type of thing, because they know that they're going to be needing pilots sooner than later. And so they're also emphasizing diversity. So they're really reaching out. So for example, the Latino Pilots Association, and by the way, if you want more information about them, you can reach them at latinopilot.org. And then there's the Professional Asian Pilot Association, and you can reach them at asianpilots.org. Both of those pretty easy addresses there. There are actually quite a few organizations that focus on diversity in aviation and aerospace, and organizations such as associations and foundations. As an example, there's the Legacy Flight Academy, there's Sisters of the Skies, Aerostar Avion Institute, Black Pilots of America, the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals, Black Pilots Association, the International Black Aerospace Council, and the Tuskegee Airmen, Inc., with chapters all over the United States. There are also a number of associations and foundations that have expanded inclusiveness as a priority, or made expanding inclusiveness as a priority. Organizations like Women in Aviation International, AOPA, the Aircraft Owner and Pilots Association, GAMA, the General Aviation and Manufacturer Association, Women in Corporate Aviation, ALPA, the Airline Pilots Association, the Bob Hoover Academy, NBAA, the National Business Aviation Association, and EAA, the Experimental Aircraft Association. And I could go on and on with that list. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest today, Clarence Garden. Clarence, you probably thought I'd never get to you. Clarence is a Management and Program Analyst with the FAA Safety Team, better known as FAAST, who sorry about that, overread myself there. Anyways, with the FAA Safety Team, and Clarence is also on the board of directors for Fly for the Culture, which is the organization we're going to talk about today. And when he's not busy with that, he flight instructs Tuskegee Airmen East Coast chapter students and others at the Columbia Training Center at Potomac Airfield, located in Fort Washington, Maryland. He's also an adjunct professor at Capital Technology University in Laurel, Maryland. He's also on their advisory board. And he probably does some other things he just hadn't told us about yet. Clarence, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Vince. Glad to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I'm glad you could spend the time. So let's see, you were out flying this morning?
I was out flying this morning. An early morning flight before I had to get on the clock.
Yeah,
it was
nice way to start the day, right?
Yeah, nice way to start the day. Early, cool, before the heat comes in, and just real quiet on the radio. So just smooth rolling.
And what kind of plane were you in?
I was in a Mooney M20C, single engine complex aircraft. Cruises at about 150, 160 miles per hour. So it was a quick little flight.
Yeah, it's a fast little aircraft. They're a lot of fun to fly too. So
it is fun.
Hats off to you for that. I'm jealous, but hats off. I like to start my day every day in a plane. Anyhow, listen, why don't we start out and tell us a little bit about you? Your background's pretty interesting. So why don't we talk about that a little bit first, in terms of, you're from Atlanta.
Yes.
You live not far from Hartsfield, where you grew up, right?
Right.
Yeah. So how did all of this aviation stuff come about?
Yes, sir. So you're right on point. So it all started down in Atlanta, College Park, Georgia. For those of you who are familiar with the area, that is where Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport is located. The Delta jets will fly over my house all the time, all day. And I just fell in love with seeing those planes just take off and land. My mom, she tells the story all the time about how there's a flea market that used to line up right with one of the runways that goes into Hartsfield. And while she was shop, I would just stand at the front of the flea market and just yell at the top of my lungs, "Mom, look at that airplane, look at that airplane." And at the time, you know, it may sound weird because, you know, people are thinking who leaves their child at a flea market unattended. And of course, it was a different time and I was loud and everybody heard me. So I think the worry would start if the yelling stopped. So as long as I was sitting there yelling at the top of my lungs about airplanes, everybody knew I was there. My mom knew I was there.
That's priceless.
Right. So that's how it started. And it got to a point to where my mom, she, as I got older, you know, and I really, you know, told my mom I really wanted to do this. She enrolled me in aviation career enrichment down in Atlanta, very prominent flight school down led by Mr. Julius Alexander.
How old were you then?
At that time, I was in the 7th grade. So doing a little math.
Wow, middle school.
Right, 12, 13-ish, yeah.
Yeah.
Doing a little math, yeah.
That's a good start.
It is. I agree. It is a good start. And that was my first exposure. And there, it took off from there, you know, being that young and getting that exposure to pilots, especially those who look like me. Because, you know, growing up, whenever we would fly somewhere, looking in the cockpit, you know, I didn't see many pilots that looked like me. It didn't deter me from pursuing my dream, but, you know, it gave me that boost when I was surrounded by us and was associated with so many pilots that look like me. So in that program, you know, I stayed engaged, and up until high school, I I graduated, and I took my talents down to Alabama State University.
Okay.
And there I enrolled in the ROTC program. So I was a little bit of a slacker in high school. You know, grades weren't really the best. So I had to earn my scholarship there. I earned a scholarship in my last 2 years there.
So you had to dig your heels in a little bit.
I did.
Yeah.
You know, clamp down, realize that life is for real.
And you were aspiring, when you were in college, you were aspiring to be a pilot, right?
I did. I wanted to be a pilot in the Air Force. You know, as you know, aviation is expensive, and
Yes.
getting that exposure, getting those flight hours are tough to come by. You know, in some homes, and you know, we weren't really in the position from I wasn't really in the position from a financial standpoint to pay for flight hours at the moment. So I figured, why not give the military a try? You know, first class organizations in the, you know, the uniformed services for first class organizations, top notch training. Their pilots are very, very, very appealing to the airline industry once they complete their time as military aviators. So
Right.
So let me dig in and try to get that done.
Right.
Yeah, so I got down to Alabama State, you know, clamped down, stayed focused, majored in political science, actually.
Okay.
Because history and political science always seem to come easy to me.
I love these stories about this stuff though, because so many people think that you have to like have an aeronautical engineering degree or something like that to be a pilot or to work in the industry. And, you know, I've talked to so many people like yourself, you know, history major, political science major, microbiology major, you know, but they're flying planes and helicopters.
Right. Yeah. You don't need a super technical mathematics degree or background.
Yeah. Unless that's your thing.
Right. Exactly. Right. Right. For you all who are good at math, we need you, and we appreciate.
Right. Yeah. If you're STEM, if you're math and all that stuff, and you're really good at it, you're needed too. But it's not a requirement to work in the industry.
Right. You definitely don't want to. Don't think that you have to have those types of backgrounds to to be in this industry. You don't.
Yeah. So you get a degree in political science. You're in ROTC, and the ROTC program too. You can expand on this if you want. It's actually a really great program.
It is.
Because anybody that's thinking about wanting to transition from getting their degree to the military, going in the military as an officer, it's a great program to do that, and can put you on an ideal track to pursue what you want to do through the military.
That's right. That's right. Yes, it's one of, especially at public colleges. Well, actually, almost any college university. It's one of the best kept secrets.
It is. It's a best kept secret.
Yeah, you have your education paid for. They give you a little bit of money on the side as a stipend.
Right.
Because they want you to be fully focused on, studying and getting that commission, as opposed to having to pick up a job or something like that. And you get your books paid for. And you also have, the important one is, you have a guaranteed job when you graduate.
When you graduate, yeah, you do. Well, I'm going to add this in there too, not just in terms of ROTC. Right now in aviation and aerospace, it's not so much you have a guaranteed job, but you have a guaranteed opportunity, because both industries are very strong and both are growing and that type of thing. Let's get back to you. So you graduate with a degree in political science, you go in the Air Force, you want to be a pilot, and what happens?
So at the time, my I guess you could say I wasn't selected to be a pilot. There are various types of
requirements.
Requirements and methods that they use. I don't really know the metrics that they really use verbatim.
It's changed over the years, but when you were doing it,
it's changed over the years.
You were challenged with that.
Right, yeah. And a large part of it is just the needs of the service at the time, ebbs and flows, depends on the administration, what conflicts are going on, all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, so I wasn't selected, unfortunately. However, I was selected to go to what's called Air Battle Manager School.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the individuals that sit in the back of an E3 AWACS. For those who don't know, it's the big plane with, it looks like a radar on top of it.
Oh, yeah. E6B. Yeah.
Right. That is a version, right. And I went down there. I said, hey, I'm on the airplane. That's a start. Let me take this opportunity.
Right.
Just with it. And I can still apply for a pilot slot down the road. So I said, let's do it. Yeah, so I get down there, and once again, being a young guy, not focused, thinking that it was going to come easy. Unfortunately, I washed out. I failed
wow.
to, it happens. Failed too many.
Yeah, but I'm going to stop you for just a second. I don't want you to feel, and I can't tell you how to feel, but you shouldn't be ashamed of that, because it happens to a lot of people. Right. And I think it just means that you either do one of two things. You try another avenue, or you literally go another route to still do what you want to do.
Right. Exactly. So after washing out, I got reclassified as a force support officer. And those are the individuals who handle food, fitness, lodging, mortuary affairs, mainly a lot of customer service focused in the service.
Gotcha.
Making sure troops are fed, making sure they got a good place our pilots got a good place to sleep at night when they come in off of those long missions. I did that, and I was assigned to the Air Force Mortuary Affairs Center in Dover. So it was actually a special duty assignment.
Okay.
It was interesting. They called me and asked me, was it something that I would consider because of the nature of it? And I said, I've never done it before, but hey, I joined the Air Force to serve. So if this is where you want me to go, I'll go. So.
And then there was this thing at Dover called the, what's it called? The flight, what was the?
Aero Club.
Aero Club.
Yes, that's true. So
and you still have flying on your mind. So
exactly. I get to Dover, and it's right. It's funny you say that, because I get to Dover, And where the center is located on base, right by the runway. So as I'm walking into work, I see these big C5s and 740 taxiing out, making all kind of noise. And I'm just looking like, oh, wow. You know, I got the deer in the headlights looking. I'm like, wow. Just looking at it, walking in. And while I was there, my commander, he gave me a book. And I think that this was the turning point of where it clicked.
Okay.
A book. It's called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. And like the first 10 chapters of the book, it's one of those quick read books where a chapter is like 3 pages, 4 pages.
Right.
So the first 10 chapters of the book talk about taking back your life for what you want to do. And just reading those chapters, you know, I got that fire behind me. I said, you know, what is it that I want to do? The question was asked, what would you do if money wasn't an option? You could do anything.
Right.
Or when you get to the other side of your life in your 80s or 90s, should you be blessed to live that long, what will be your biggest regrets? And I was thinking about that. And I said, man, I really want to fly. And I was thinking, you know, just because the Air Force said I couldn't do it, doesn't mean I don't have to do it or I can't do it. So a few days later, I marched myself right around to the Aero Club and I signed up to get my private pilot's license. Signed up, got my license. It took me about a year to get it because working a full-time job, and then you got special duties that you have to deal with.
But you got it.
I got it. It took me a year to get it. I got it. So I said, hey, let me ask the Air Force if I could fly again. Hey, I kind of improved myself, so I got a license. So So I asked them again, and again they said no.
Okay.
And
did they give you a reason the second time?
No, it wasn't a reason.
Okay.
And believe it or not, I tried a third time. I asked again, and they said no.
So you hadn't given up. You were still trying to make it happen.
Oh, definitely. I've heard someone say no equals next opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. And you're always guaranteed the no if you don't ask. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. But you know what, Clarence, not to jump around too much, but this kind of really gives an idea to our viewers why you're involved with an organization like Fly for the Culture.
Right.
Because of what you personally have gone through.
Right.
To progress in the industry and try to get to reach the goals that you were going for first with the Air Force. So when you came out of so there was a point, I guess you decided after the third try, correct me if I'm wrong, okay, this is going to be a wrap. I'm going to finish up my tour and I'm out.
Well, yeah, actually, that's another funny story. Actually, the decision was made for me. So the Air Force was they were going through force reduction, and they were asking people to involuntarily separate.
Okay.
And I didn't make the next rank, so I had to go. And when I tell you, that was probably the best thing to ever happen to me, all honesty.
Really?
Yeah, one of the best things to ever happen to me. And I say that because in the military, it's a great organization, top-notch training. It's a great thing to be a part of.
And you were proud to serve.
And yes, and you're proud to serve. However, there's a slight degree of comfortability you get with that, with the benefits and, just the security of the job. It keeps you kind of comfortable to where it's like, I may not like exactly what I'm doing, but
you become complacent.
Yeah, the money as an officer is not bad either. So you kind of get complacent. You're like, yeah, let me tough this thing out for at least 20 years. and you get the retirement. So the decision was made for me, to leave. And I said, like I said, that's probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. And to be honest with you, if I could go find those individuals that made that decision for me today,
you would thank them.
Yes, I would. They probably, other people are probably like, yeah, you probably hate them. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. So when you came out of the Air Force, when did you transition to the FAA?
Well, so I was at a period of time where when I left the Air Force, I moved down to Georgia. went back down to Georgia, spent some time with my family, trying to figure out my next move.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a job back up in the DC area. I was hired by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office.
Okay.
Right, in their Department of International Affairs, because during my time in the Air Force, I got a master's degree in international relations. I know it makes no sense. I
No,
know.
no, it's fine. You were still kind of focused on that's almost an offshoot of political science a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. So and you were like, well, I might as well advance it and get my master's.
Yeah.
But then you didn't know what you were going to do with it.
Exactly. I had no idea. Well, I kind of had an idea, still being in the military, I thought I was going to fly
right.
for 10 years. And then I was going to try to hop over to the International Political Military Affairs Officer Program. And that was the track I was putting on myself to be a career officer.
Well, all you're doing is pointing out to our viewers that we never quite know what our path is going to be. And even though we have intentions for it to be one thing or another, and I have 3 daughters, I know about the whole thing of deciding what you're going to major in and what you're going to do with it after you graduate and all that kind of stuff. And I think everybody goes through that.
Right, that's true.
I think in particular with aviation and aerospace, though, I think it can be kind of challenging because you have a lot of opportunity and options, I should say. You have a lot of options, but then which direction do you go? In your case, you had the passion for flying. You knew you wanted to fly. You knew you wanted to be a pilot. So that was always in the back of your head, right?
Right. It was. When I was at the Patent and Trademark Office, the route I take on the metro goes right past Reagan Airport.
There you go again.
and so that's another reminder every day. You just see Southwest planes and American Airlines just taking off landing, and they're calling. They're like, Clarence, you should be here.
And you're like, I'm supposed to be over there.
Right. Exactly. They're calling your name.
Yeah.
So there, while I was at the Patent and Trademark Office, you know what? Let me see if I can get back to flying, and just get the rest of my ratings, and just go from there. So I enrolled at the Community College of Baltimore County using my GI Bill, which was, I had that in my benefit, right, from my service. So I enrolled there, and I got the rest of my ratings. I got my instrument rating, my commercial ticket. I got my CFI and my CFII and my commercial multi as well. And so now I'm actually working towards my multi-engine instructor rating.
Okay. Now. So you have continued to progress that.
Right.
And then you applied for a job with the FAA Safety Team?
Right, that's right. So I'm on the metro with a buddy I attend church with. And I asked him who he worked for, just casual conversation. I was like, who do you work for? He goes, the FAA. I said, well, what do you do there? He says, I work in the Office of Rulemaking. We deal with aviation policy. I'm like, aviation policy? I said, wow. I said, I have my certificates and I got a political science background. I mean, that'll be
right. Good match.
Said, right, exactly. So I asked, I said, if y'all have any openings, please let me know. And not even maybe a month later, he just texts me. He says, hey, email me your resume. He's updated and emailed it to me. And I said, great. I sent it to him. And I mean, God just opened that door. Like, not even 2 days later, I got a phone call for an interview with the FAA Office of Rulemaking. And I went in for the interview, and it didn't even feel like an interview. It was just me and the guys talking about aviation. And like a week later, I got the offer letter, and I was just like, man.
So the stars were aligned for you.
Yes, they were.
But an important part about your story too is not only that you kind of happenstanced into it, but the thing I like to emphasize is that staying in the aviation realm is something that I think all people, particularly young people, should look at if their track is not going quite the way they want it. And trust me, last year there were people that graduated with degrees from Embry-Riddle and UND and Purdue and all of the aviation-centric schools with flight training under their belt and the whole bit. They were going to be going into a program with the United or American or whomever to work their way into the system.
Right.
and all that shut down. And so then they were all retreating and going and regrouping and saying, wow, what am I going to do now? And some of them pivoted. Some of them said, well, you know what, I'm gonna go back to school and get my master's while I'm waiting this out. Some of them, said, as soon as I can flight instruct again, I'm going to go ahead and build my time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them started looking at places that we don't think of, like flying cargo, and no, I don't mean the 747 UPS or I'm talking about the small regional cargo that drops off in the smaller cities and all that kind of stuff, et cetera. So people had to think through. But one of the common denominators was, but try to stay somewhere in aviation. In other words, work at the FAA if you can get a job there, or work at Garmin or whatever the case may be. Work at a manufacturer. It doesn't mean you have to put planes together. You can work in their marketing department, their government department, whatever the case may be.
Yes. Aviation touches almost every line of work you can think of. Aviation touches it.
Exactly. Let's talk about Fly for the Culture. First, tell us what it is. It's a relatively new organization. Tell us what you guys do and how it all got started and that type of thing.
Oh yes, well, Fly for the Culture is we're a nonprofit organization, and we just and we push for and promote for and we advocate for diversity and inclusion in aviation and all the aviation related fields. It was started by Cortland Savage. He's a former Navy officer who encountered some barriers and some obstacles in flight training. And
like somebody else we know. Okay.
Yeah, and apparently he and after he left flight training, he decided he wanted to start an organization to just push for more diversity and inclusion in the field. And what we do is we have a big social media presence. We really want people to see that there are individuals out here that look like them, that can operate aircraft, work on aircraft, work in the front offices of aviation corporations. So that's really our big thing. We just like to promote diversity and inclusion in aviation. We attend events like, for example, we were at Sun and Fun last month, and we'll be at Oshkosh this year.
How was Sun and Fun for you in terms of the attendance of folks of color being there and that type of thing?
Well, I guess I should. The organization was at Sun and Fun. I didn't go personally.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I was unable to go.
I need to ask Cortland or somebody then, huh?
Yeah. But from the pictures, we had a pretty good representation down there, and you can tell that that people of color are really starting to come out and get more involved in this thing. And it's through organizations like ours that they know about stuff like this. A lot of people just don't know. So just getting that awareness out and just providing another avenue for individuals to live their dreams and make a living is what we're all about.
Okay, so and you guys do a number of events. I can't remember if I read that. Do you also do scholarships or connect people with scholarships?
Yes, we are. I'm sorry. Yes, we do. We connect people with scholarship opportunities. And just this past week, we just started actually flight training, Fly for the Culture. Now, up until us doing actual flight training, we will partner with schools such as Columbia Training Center, Potomac.
Right.
And we would actually, or we still actually provide orientation flights for individuals who may be interested. For example, someone will email us and they'll say, hey, I live in, let's say, for example, Dallas. Are there any flight schools you could connect me to for an orientation flight? So we will link them up with the flight school there. And if it's a young person, we do our best to try to pay for that flight for them so they can get experience on us. And that's
great.
Yes, sir. And that's where pretty much all our proceeds and our profits go. Our profits that we get from donations and from the merchandise that we sell. None of us take salaries from this. All that goes towards putting kids in airplanes, getting them exposed, and getting people exposed to the other avenues of aviation as well.
So you're an all volunteer board.
Right.
and staff that works with the organization. And so on the scholarship portion, I think that's great that you guys connect people with scholarships. I can't overemphasize how many scholarships are out there that are not accessed, and particularly by folks of color that just don't know about them, as you pointed out earlier. But they're all of the organizations that I spoke of earlier in the show, like AOPA, Aircraft Owner and Pilots Association, EAA, they all have scholarship programs that provide for, whether it's just to get your private or for advanced training in some cases, et cetera, and so forth. But there's just a plethora of scholarship offerings out there.
Right, that's true. That's true. And Legacy Flight Academy, like you named, Sisters of the Skies. We can the Tuskegee Next organization. They
OBAP,
OBAP, they all provide.
They all provide or connect you to scholarships.
Right.
And then coming back full circle on it, United just ramped up their training program.
Right.
And they have, in fact, they now have put up $1.2 million, and that's been matched by JP Morgan. So now they have $2.4 million in scholarships to bring people into their training program, to then, take you all the way through for your flight training, if I'm not mistaken. And now Delta has done the same. Well, not the same amount. I don't know what their amount is, but they have a program also that's aggressively, because one of the things, and I should have mentioned this early on, I'd like to remind people, we had a real workforce concern about pilot shortage prior to the pandemic. Well, the pandemic just put that on hold for a year, but it's coming back. And we are rolling right back into, because a lot of people did early retirement. A lot of people are retiring. A lot of people weren't just furloughed, but they called it quits. And so there are a lot of need now. There's a great need now for pilots as the airlines get back up, ramp back up. And everybody's been cooped up for a year, so everybody wants to travel. And the airlines is going to be the place they're going to do a lot of it. So it's opening back up to tremendous opportunities, not only for being a pilot, for being a mechanic, an A&P, or to be a technician, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be wide open, but particularly with pilots, I mean, they're talking about needing to bring in, I forget the number now, I should have written it down, but there's thousands of pilots that are going to be needed within the next 5 to 10 years. And then that's just going to keep growing exponentially. So, yeah.
Right. And and one of the biggest cause, should I say one of the many causes for the shortage, besides the pandemic, was also the 1,500-hour rule. That's the rule that that came about when it was raised from 1,200 to 1,500 after that accident.
Right. The
and they've been negotiating and trying to change that for a number of years now. I know that from my days at MBAA and prior to that AOPA. So that's something that's actively being looked at and challenged and taken under consideration.
Right.
Yeah. But the good news is, we've got some new folks in key areas related to air transportation and that type of thing. They're at the FAA, your deputy administrator. And then, we have a new deputy secretary of transportation. And both of them, by the way, were just speaking the other day with the General Aviation Manufacturers Association board meeting about workforce diversity, what needs to take place and things like that. So it's on the front burner.
Right. It is. It's long overdue, but
Yeah. What with what has happened with the pandemic and with you guys with all of us coming out of it and moving forward, what are some of the things that are on the front burner for Fly for the Culture?
It's just getting
getting back to having those in-person, face-to-face meetings, at airports, like you said, the past year and some change has been all virtual. Zoom fatigue galore is taking us all.
Zoom fatigue. That's going to probably be in the Webster dictionary soon.
Right. Yeah, Zoom fatigue, Hangouts fatigue.
Yeah.
Fatigue. Yeah, whatever you call it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just getting past that and just getting out at airports. And the important thing is, especially more importantly, I would say the kids, getting the kids out. The majority of the kids in the country have been virtual learning, and I know that has fried them, just like it's fried.
That's rough. It's rough for an adult. I can't, my kids are grown now, but I can't imagine young kids being home, if you're in elementary or middle school or even high school, and you're stuck home all the time. Now that people are getting vaccinated, et cetera, you see more and more, you see kids in like little groups, like just being outside. They got their mask on, but they're just happy to hang out with each other and socialize.
Right. And the good thing about, being in airports is that airports are big and spaced out. So distancing concerns aren't really that big of a deal. For example, this past Saturday, the aviation ministry I'm a part of, we had our meeting out at the airfield here at Potomac Airfield, and just seeing the looks on the kids' faces to get to sit in the cockpit,
Yeah, it's always priceless.
Right. And just to walk around the airport environment and just seeing the parents, just the parents' joy in seeing their kids, just seeing that sigh of relief and keeping them motivated.
Tell us real quick about your aviation ministry. That's kind of cool that the church has specifically an aviation ministry.
Yes, sir. First Baptist Church of Glen Arden, up in the DC area. Maryland side, that is. We have aviation ministry.
The DMV.
Yes, sir, the DMV. That was started in 2002. Our pastor, Pastor John K. Jenkins, he's actually a licensed pilot.
Oh, wow. That explains part of it.
Right, and it started from his vision. He did a sermon or a presentation on running towards your fear, or overcoming your fears. And he was inspired by an individual who ran towards their fears, that he decided to conquer his fear of flying or fear of heights. And he went head forward and got his private pilot's license, and eventually got his instrument rating. And now he's been flying since about 2003. Recreationally. And he wanted to start a ministry that exposes youth and young adults and pretty much the community to the myriad opportunities in aviation and aerospace. And it could, because there's so many between, and not just pilots, air traffic controllers, engineers on the military side, policy analysts for the FAA.
Right.
So
aviation attorneys, the whole bit.
Exactly. So he really wanted to just get the community and his congregation involved and exposed to that. And the first director was Minister Donnie Simons. He's a retired air traffic controller up in the DC area. A lot of people know who he is, a real great guy. And just recently he stepped down, and now myself and Captain Herb Lacey, who's a naval aviator, we run the ministry as director and assistant director.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's another way to reach youth in a positive way and give them something positive to focus on.
Yes, sir, definitely.
So that's really great. Getting back to what you guys do in terms of the organization, Fly for the Culture, and really just talking in general about getting young people motivated. You were mentioning earlier that the look on kids' face when they come to the airport and they have a chance to sit in the cockpit. I've seen that firsthand. I've taken kids up myself, and the excitement that they get because it's almost like it's totally foreign to them, and now you're familiarizing with something that they realize, oh, I could do this. I could actually be a pilot. I could actually be involved in aviation. Share your perspective about that with your own experiences.
Oh, definitely. Every time, whenever we get kids out to the airfield, seeing their faces, I just think about that same little boy who stood outside of Hartsfield Airport years ago, did the same thing. It just, that feeling just comes back, and it's like, and my first thought is, I know that feeling, but I'm going to do my best to make sure you get there with as few barriers as possible. That's my next feeling. I just want to make sure that they know that they can do this and that it's my obligation. I'm obligated to teach them early what I learned late.
Right.
And
Clarence, what is that? So you talked about all the way from your passion starting in middle school, and then the challenges you went through, and
right.
you went to school, you got into an ROTC program, you went into the Air Force, you wanted to fly, you had challenges with that, et cetera, and you're still working on your flying post Air Force. You're working for the FAA, so you're still involved. You're volunteering with organizations like Fly for the Culture, with the aviation ministry at your church. So what's your advice to young people that, as you say, might be in the same shoes as you when you were, their age?
Yeah, I would definitely tell them to not give up. You're going to encounter barriers and there's going to be some obstacles, but that just makes the reward even sweeter once you get there. And something else that's very important for, I think, everybody to know is that dreams don't have deadlines.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm sitting up here 35 years old. I'm still working on my dream. My dream was to be an airline pilot. That opportunity may come sooner now. But we tend, in life, we tend to put things in boxes and we tend to make a checklist of, okay, by this age, I need to have this done. By that age, I need to have this done. And when that whole plan goes, doesn't go how you intended it, you're just depressed and you're upset. And then,
and you're done.
Right. And you're done. And then you end up settling for something that you really didn't want to do. Is just secure. And then you find yourself just living for the weekends and the off time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't really get up enjoying what you do. You just, okay, it makes enough money. I'm going to go take this vacation. See me, I don't really feel like I have to take a vacation because I'm doing what I love every day. If you do what find something, find your passion, do what you love so you'll never work a day in your life. Life is meant to be enjoyed. It's not meant to be struggled through. Find that passion and work towards it.
Yeah. And stay focused on it.
Right, exactly. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
Stay focused on it, especially when it comes to grades. Like I would say one of the detractors for me getting that pilot slot was my grade point average wasn't as high as others, because those pilot slots are very, 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 very competitive. And I'll say, that I could have worked harder, like I can sit up here, and say I could have worked harder. There are things that I could have worked harder at. So whenever I'm pouring into those young people, I let them know the importance of making the best grades possible. And that it's something that my chief instructor says that, if you work hard, you won't necessarily be the best, but you'll be one of the best. But you got to put the work in.
You got to make the effort. Yeah.
Right.
I was thinking when you talk about the determination and stuff, I've had some guests on. I had one young lady in particular from Johannesburg, South Africa. And she, it was amazing. She was taking a taxi 2 hours each way to go to the airport to take one flight lesson per month. She could only afford one flight lesson per month. And that's how she started, but long story short, she persisted. She sent letters to anybody in aviation. She finally got hired by the South African Police Department, and they took care of her flight training. But it was in helicopters. She wanted to be an airline pilot. So at first she was like, well, okay, it's free, so let me go ahead and do it. And she thought she would do the flight training, fly helicopters for a year or two, and then move on to become an airline pilot. Well, fast forward 10 years later, she was still flying for the police. So she flew for them for 10 years. And then she started an organization there in South Africa, similar to what you guys do with Fly for the Culture. And she's been doing that along with other things. So, which reminds me about something else. You, I think, are involved in drones in one form or another.
Drones? Yes, I am. Actually, the the courses that we teach at Capital Technology University are unmanned aerial systems focused.
Okay.
Right. They're looking at getting into fixed wing manned aircraft, but right now they have a heavy emphasis, and a lot of their students have a big interest in drones and UAS, unmanned aerial systems.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys do anything like that with the association with Fly for the Culture, but the reason I'm bringing drones up and unmanned aerial systems, just like when I was a kid, and that we don't want to go that far back, but those type of like drones, model rockets, model airplanes, our radio controlled airplanes, I should say, are a great way for younger kids to get a feel for aviation and
right.
what, just playing with a radio controlled aircraft or launching a model rocket out in a park or open field or whatever, or playing with a drone, which is another form of radio controlled. I think those are great ways to get engaged with our industry.
Right. That's true. And as you stated, that's the wave of the future. Drones and drones for commercial use, delivering packages.
Absolutely.
Getting actual footage or videos or taking a certain type of shots of certain things that you wouldn't be able to get.
Agriculture, the whole
agriculture.
bit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They are. And the thing is all of these kids are playing video games. So transitioning from that to operating a drone is a kind of a natural thing.
Right.
Yeah. So we have a few minutes before we wrap up. Coming back to Fly for the Culture, and I guess one of the things I want to make sure we pointed out, besides how people can get in touch with you and that type of thing, is that most people have a tendency to associate an association that talks about people of color as only referring to Blacks or African Americans. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I noticed in looking at you guys' website is that you also embrace Latinos,
right,
Asians, and
right,
basically anybody of color.
Right. Yes. It's the whole concept of making sure that aviation is open to everyone. Latinos, Asians, everyone. We want to give opportunities to everyone. The dreaded D word, discrimination, is out there, but
right. Yeah.
We don't discriminate.
Yeah. You've been in the industry. I've been in the industry for a long time, and it's something. It seems to always kind of trigger people when you start talking about diversifying. And it's like you're going to take something away. And there's plenty out there for everybody, and really it's just about getting a fair shake. So to me, if you have the training, the hours, the experience, et cetera, and you qualify for a particular opportunity, whether it's flying for the airlines or flying corporate or flying medevac or whatever it is, you should be looked at equally along with all the other applicants in that regard. And then, it's a lot of it. And I've heard this said, and this has nothing to do with race or anything. I've heard people say a lot of it's about personality, that somebody can be a really good pilot, but if their personality is not happening, being polite, then they probably won't get the job anyhow. So I think it's a combination of things, but really we're just that. And then, as you said earlier, exposing people of color to the opportunities. You guys had a lady, a Latina, Claudia, I forget the rest of her name, but who is an airline pilot. I think she's with United now. But her story was amazing, and she tells that story on you guys' website about how she, was an immigrant or came over with immigrant parents, I should say, or whatever the case may be. And she was a flight attendant, and then she never thought about being a pilot until she saw a couple of pilots of color. And then she was like, oh, so I could be a pilot. never thought about that before. And then she was like, well, I want to be a pilot, but she went through a lot to get to that point. And you're coming back to your case in point of somebody that's still striving for that goal of becoming an airline pilot. And by the way, at your age, you still got plenty of time and plenty of opportunity with it. So,
Right.
you
That's
know,
right.
you really do. And especially with the way the industry's ramping up now. Yeah, I can't overemphasize how much this industry is really kicking into high gear. And that's just the aviation side of it. You know, if you go to the aerospace side, that's a whole nother thing. So I got to tease you about something. You had well, when we were talking earlier, and we were talking about, I think when you made the comment of saying, yeah, we were both saying that you don't necessarily have to have a degree in aeronautical engineering or whatever. Well, what did I say that for? Because a friend of yours, and I'm going to say his name, Thomas McKnight, he said, I'm an aeronautical engineer.
Oh, I know he's watching.
He said, how dare you? No, he didn't say all that. But he did say, I'm an aeronautical engineer. It's the best of both worlds, or something to that effect.
Yeah. That's my guy.
I do want to reemphasize, yeah, if you have the qualities, the skill set for STEM, not qualities, but skill set for STEM, where you're good with math, you're good with science, you know, you're natural with technology and that type of thing, then yeah, absolutely. The sky's the limit, no pun intended, for you on that. And sure, go for that aeronautical or aerospace engineering, you know, go to Embry-Riddle or University of North Dakota or Purdue or SIU, Carbondale, but what?
Tuskegee,
yeah,
North Carolina A&T.
Yeah, Tuskegee University.
Right.
You know,
Oregon
go
State,
for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, but if you have a thing where you're really good and you're probably going to lean towards law or wherever, you know, whatever type of major you're going to do, it still probably applies somewhere, because both industries, both aviation and aerospace, need people that specialize in all these different things. So as a UND professor said on a show earlier this year, and I thought it was great, he goes, yeah, well, when we go to Mars, you know, somebody's going to have to know how to deal with dentistry and, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true.
And I was like, wow, a space dentist. Okay. Yeah. Well, listen, it's great to have had you on the show. And again, I'm sorry and glad, but I'm sorry that the other two organizations that I had hoped to have, the Latino Pilots Association and the Professional Asian Pilot Association, on also just to represent and talk about what they do and about, you know, that aspect of it in terms of the diversity. But it's really great what Fly for the Culture is doing, and boy, has it ramped up fast. It's only been around for 3 years, and you know, you guys, hats off to Cortland. You guys are kicking butt. So
thank you, we appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's cool that I have to come down to Potomac Field and check out what you guys do. We have the mutual friend Yvonne McGee.
Oh yes,
the daughter of the iconic, you know, national treasure, Brigadier General Charles McGee, who at 101 and a half is still making noise, you know?
Right, exactly. You know, something about General McGee that myself and our chief instructor were talking about. So he flew over 400 combat missions.
409, yeah.
Right, over 3 conflicts. So
yes,
he flew 137 combat missions in World War II.
Right.
137. His white counterparts only had to fly 50.
Right.
Before they return home. So he flew almost 2.5 times more combat missions than they flew.
Exactly.
And he's still walking the earth today.
What's key about that too is that he has his record has yet to be broken.
Right, exactly.
After all this time. This is the guy that retired in the 70s.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, we're talking quite a while ago and his record is still yet to be broken. So, yeah, I just had the pleasure of visiting him the other day, and had a short visit with him. He looks good. He sounds good. He's still sharp as a tack. He'll talk to you. He can talk to you about stuff in 1940, whatever, or he can talk to you about drones and about SpaceX. And he's absolutely an amazing individual. So,
Sir.
yeah.
Right.
So, inspiring is what he is.
Very, very.
Yeah. So very good. Well, thank you again. Appreciate having you on the program, and wish you the best. Hope to hear back from you one day saying that you're flying for one of the airlines.
Oh, I appreciate the time. Thank you for having me, and thank you all for tuning in. And remember to keep after your dreams and push for the stars.
Absolutely. One final thing. What's the best way to get in touch with Fly for the Culture?
Best way to get in touch with us is through almost any social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Fly for the Culture. Just shoot us a DM, and or you can look us up on flyfortheculture.org, and we have contact information there where you can send us an email. So various ways, feel free. Or you could also follow me at Ice Cold Flyer 06, and I can direct you on Instagram, that is, Instagram and Twitter.
All right. Clarence Garden. Clarence, take care of yourself. Safe flying, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. And you've been watching and listening to All Things Aviation and Aerospace. I'm Vince Mickens, and looking forward to a really great show next Thursday. Actually going to have a show about becoming an air show pilot and what that's all about. I'm going to have some iconic folks on, like Patty Wagstaff, et cetera. So hope you can join us for that. And everybody take care. Have a good